Welcome to chapter 20 of the book of 1 Kings. I missed a week of video seminars last week, the first week of December. I was working on the third edition of the Apostolic Bible Polyglot. The third edition hopefully will be printed eventually. We only have 10 books left, second edition of the books that are first-line books. But in between, we're going to print the New Testament only in a different format, 8.5 by 11 on a black shiny cover, a bigger font, easier to read, and it'll be available hopefully in a couple of weeks. And then early in 2021, hopefully we'll have the hardback edition of the Apostolic Bible Polyglot with both Old and New Testaments, as we had in the last video seminar. With that, we go into this chapter 20, and it begins again with Hadad, the king of Syria, the son of Hadad, king of Syria. He gathered together all his dynamite comes from that, his force, army, and 32 kings with him, probably tribal heads. And Hadad was in Damascus, and he had horses, AP, a hippo comes from that, a hippopotamus, a water horse, and armaments, chariots and horses. And they ascended and laid siege against Samaria, the kingdom of Israel. Samaria was one of the major cities. I'm not sure if you would consider it the capital or not, but it was south of Damascus, not too far. So this Hadad, son of Hadad, had thought himself being very powerful, and now a chance to take Samaria. He waged war against it. And he sent Angelus to Ahab Vasileia, the king of Israel, into the city. And he said to him, "Thus says the son of Hadad, your silver and your gold is mine, it is mine, and your wives and your children, the best, it is mine." A lot of gumption to be able to tell another man that everything he has, all of his money, his wives and his children are all his, the person that's saying that, rather than the man who has it. But this is what son of Hadad did to Ahab. And the king of Israel answered and said, "Well, as you have spoken, O my master, O king, I am yours and all my things." He's not real. He doesn't end up giving it to him, but he's placating him more or less for right now, is the way I see it. And the messengers returned and said, "Thus says the son Hadad, I have sent to you, saying, your silver and your gold and your wives and your children you shall give to me. For this hour tomorrow I will send my servants to you, and they will search your house and the houses of your servants, and it will be all the desires of their eyes, of whatever they should put upon with their hands, they shall take." So Ahab's up against the rock and the hard place. Not much he can do. We're in the rock and the hard place a lot of times ourselves. Somebody wants to do us damage and threatens us. The government or another person or somebody in the business, the boss, all sorts of scenarios where people will come against us and we don't see a way out. And the king of Israel called all the elders, the presbyteros of the land, and said, "Know indeed, and behold, that this one seeks evil, for he has sent to me for my wives and for my children, and my silver and my gold. I have not kept back from him." Now, whether he actually sent them there, it sounds like he did, but maybe some of them. "And the elders and all the people said to him, "You should not hearken." Acoustics. Listen, hearing. "And you should not want." And you see the dagger, and you go down, and it'll say consent. And that's what another possible meaning. And he said to the messengers of Hadad, son of Hadad, "Well, say to your master, as much as you sent to your bondmen at first I'll do, but this thing I shall not be able to do." And the men departed and returned to him the word. Returned, apparently, the son of Hadad the word. And the son of Hadad sent to him, saying, "Well, thus may the gods do to me, and thus may they add, if the dust of Samaria shall suffice for handfuls to all the people, to my footmen." We're going to trot it under by the chariots and the army. Won't be anything left to you. More threats. And the king of Israel answered and said, "Well, let that be enough. Let not the humpback boast as the one standing straight." One of these Middle Eastern sayings that they have, among the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and so forth. And this is many of these. I think Erasmus wrote a book on different types of these little quips. I can't think of the name of it offhand, but so now Ahab is sort of standing up against the son of Hadad, but he may be still fearing. "And it came to pass when he answered to him this word, as he was drinking," it would have been son of Hadad, "and all the kings with him in tents," so they were all getting drunk, "that he said to his servants," Hadad said to his servants, "Build a siege mound." And they put a siege mound around against the city of Samaria. And behold, one prophet came forward to Ahab, king of Israel, and said, "Thus says the Lord, have you seen all this great multitude? Behold, I give it today into your hands, and you shall know that I am the Lord." Wow. All of a sudden, he's going to give it to their hands. They're going to be gone. And Ahab said, "Well, by whom?" And he said, "Thus says the Lord." The Lord is going to be the one delivering. It's not going to be Ahab's by himself. "By the young men of the rulers of the regions." And Ahab, he's going to use the young men. And Ahab said, "Well, who shall join together for the war?" And he said, "You." So Ahab numbered the servants of the rulers of the regions, and they were 232. So now he's gathering an army. "And after these things he numbered the people, every son of power, 7,000. And he went forth at midday. And the son of Hadad was drinking and being intoxicated in Succoth, he and the kings, 32 kings, and I believe Succoth is up towards northern part towards Israel, Damascus. The allies with him, they were all drinking, having a good time. "And came forth the young men, the rulers of the regions at first." They come out, and the son of Hadad sent, and they led up to him, saying, Men have come forth from out of Samaria." And he said to them, "Well, if in peace they come forth, seize them alive. And if it's for war they came forth, well, seize them alive also." And the young men went forth from out of the city of the rulers of the regions, and the force after them from Samaria. And each man struck the one by him. And Syria fled. So the men of Israel attacks Syria and defeats them, and they fled. And Israel pursued them And the son of Hadad escaped Syria. The son of Hadad, king of Syria, escaped upon a horse of a horseman. And the king of Israel came forth and took up the horses and the chariots and struck a great calamity against Syria. And the prophet came forth to the king of Israel and said, Well, strengthen yourself and know and see what you shall do. For returning during the year, the son of Hadad, the king of Syria, will ascend against you again. And the servants of the king of Syria said to him, There's a big mistake. The God of mountains is the God of Israel, not a God of valleys. On account of this, they powered over us. But if we wage war against them according to the straight plains, assuredly we'll power over them. We're stronger than them. And so they figure out that God is limited and put this limit on God, and this is not what you want to do. And this thing you do, let the kings each depart to their place and establish satraps in place of them. These are like governors. And you exchange according to the force falling from you, even horse for horse and chariots for chariots. Replace everything. And we will wage war against them in the straight plains, and we will power over them. And he, Hadad, the son of Hadad, hearkened to their phonies, and he did thus. And it came to pass at the return of the year that the son of Hadad mustered Syria. Mustering is for an army. Gets it together. And he ascended into Aphekah for polemics, war of words. But this is the real war against Israel. And the sons of Israel were mustered. Army got together and came to meet them. And Israel camped right opposite them, as two flocks of goats, huge flocks of goats. And Syria filled the land. And now, this might be showing that Israel had way less people also than Syria. And came forward a man of God. Now, I don't know if it doesn't say the same prophet. He said to the king of Israel, Thus says the Lord, well, because Syria said, Kyrios is a god of the mountain. The Kyrios, the God of Israel, is God of the mountains, and he is not God of the valleys, which they said, that I will give this great force into your hand, and you shall know that I am the Lord. Second time. And these camped before those. Who's the these and the who's of those? 7 days. These could have been Israel, and those would have been the Syrians. And it came to pass in the 7th day that the war led on. Now, I'm not sure here if it means it went on for 7 days. I would assume that's what it's talking about. Not after, maybe after 7 days facing off and finally they went to war. It could be, I'm not sure which one. And Israel struck Syria, 100,000 footmen in 1 day, wiped them out. That's a lot of people. Wow. And the rest fled from Aphekah into the city, probably Damascus. And the wall, well, it wouldn't have been Damascus. It would have probably said that because this says the wall fell upon 27,000 men of the ones remaining. And the son of Hadad fled, and he entered into the house of the bedroom, into the inner chamber, where it went to a house and hid. And his servants said to him, Indeed, behold, we heard that the kings of the house of Israel are kings of mercy. We should place indeed sackcloth, and there's sakus in Greek in transliteration, upon our loins, like under pants for men, very painful, and rough cords upon our heads. And we shall go forth to the king of Israel, if by any means he shall bring forth alive our lives. Hopefully he won't kill us. And they girded sackcloths upon their loins and put the rough cords upon their heads. And they said to the king of Israel, they went there, your bondman, the son of Hadad, says, let my soul live indeed. Let me live. And he said, that is Ahab, does he still live? He's my brother. And the men foretold and hastened and gathered up the word from out of his mouth and said, and went back to Hadad, your brother, and the men foretold and gathered up the word from out of his mouth and said, your brother, the son of Hadad. And he said, enter and receive him. So apparently they've gathered up the son of Hadad and they come back and they announce to him that he's there. And he says, enter and receive him. And the son of Hadad came forth to him. And they transported him upon the chariot to him like a king. And he said to him, the cities which my father took from your father I give back to you, and you shall establish streets in Damascus for yourself. So that would be, he would be son of Hadad, to him Ahab. So I'm giving back everything that we took, and you'll have a street in Damascus, as my father established in Samaria. And Ahab said, I, by covenant, shall send you out, making a covenant. He ordained with him a covenant, peace, and sent him out. So his enemy wanted to kill him, wipe out Israel. He lets him go. And one man from out of the sons of the prophets, so this is apparently the third different one from the Lord, said to his neighbor, by a word of the Lord, strike me indeed. What? The other guy, what? And the man would not strike him. And he said to him, well, because you hearken not to the voice of the Lord, behold, as you run from me, a lion shall strike you. And he, the man, went forth from him, and a lion found him and struck him. And he, the man of the prophets, finds another man, and he said to him, strike me indeed. And the man struck him. This one probably heard about what happened the first one, so no, he doesn't want to get eaten by the lion, and he strikes him. And he broke him. And the prophet went and stood to the king of Israel upon the way. Ahab was coming. And he bound his eyes with a ligature, a blindfold. And it came to pass, as the king came near, that he yelled out to the king, and he said, your bondman went forth with the military for war. And that's himself. And behold, the man brought to me another man, and he said to me, guard this man. And if by rushing away he should rush away, then your life will be required for his life, or a talent of silver you establish for it. Now he's making this up from the Lord. And it came to pass, as your bondman looked round about here this way and here that way, that this man was not around. He escaped. And the king of Israel said to him, well, behold, you did as a judge, as a magistrate. You murdered, for you murdered to me. You did the job. And he hastened and removed the blindfold, the ligature from his eyes. And the king of Israel recognized him, that he was this one from out of the prophets. And he, the man of the prophets, said to him, thus says the Lord, for you sent out a pernicious man, being the son of Hadad, to escape from out of your hand, even your life will be required for his life, and your people for his people. So this is what God is going to take and defeat the people and kill Ahab. And the king of Israel went forth, being confounded and faint, and came unto Samaria. So he was upset more or less, and he goes back home to Samaria. But it continues with Ahab in chapter 21, the kind of a semi-famous chapter about Naboth's vineyard and Jezebel. Hope you'll join us in chapter 21. Till then, God bless.